Hello, well welcome to the, I guess, second showing of Ask Me Anything. And I'm here with Rob and with Joe. If you can just introduce yourself, starting with Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Bobowicz. I'm the editorial assistant at SHOWstudio.
Rob?
Hi, I'm Rob Rusling. I'm Nick Knight's first assistant.
Okay, so the idea of this is that it's just an honest and very direct way of answering questions that we get on social media. So it's just a way to try and be as direct and as frank with you as the things you ask, which means sometimes I won't have a good answer and we will not have good answers for you because life isn't that simple. But I will try and attempt to answer all of them as best that I can, and I would have asked Joe and Rob to help me on that. So anyway, the first question which came through, I think on Instagram, from somebody called Dove2543, says, "Hi, is SHOWstudio ever open during the weekend? I wanted to see one of your shows and I've been unable to due to working week, to go during the working week." Sadly, no, we're not open at weekends. The gallery is open between 10:30 and 6, is that correct?
It is, yeah.
10:30 and 6, from Monday to Friday. The things, we just launched a new show. So we just launched a show of fashion illustrations called 100 Women, where we've asked 100 models, from Kate Moss to Naomi Campbell to Cindy Crawford, to loads of people that you will know, to say to us when they felt the most empowered in a photograph, what they were wearing. And then we took all their answers and we gave 50 of the world's best fashion illustrators those pictures and those words, and asked them to create an illustration, or 2 illustrations for each illustrator. That's what the exhibition's of. It's running until...
It's running to the end of January.
End of Jan.
31st of January 2019.
Okay, so do come and see it, because it's what you can see behind us in any case. So that's the first question. So who shall I give the answer to you? Okay. So then leaping out of that to somebody called Cookie Monster, so COOKIEE_Munster, referring to a Alexander McQueen picture, as she or he has written, "Why hasn't stuff like this carried on since McQueen's death? I've always loved the theatricality of his shows. It wasn't just about the clothes, the performance was just as important." You're quite right. Lee McQueen, a lot of his energy, a lot of his money, a lot of his time went into putting his shows together, and he kind of led that way. But Joe, he's not the only designer, is he, that tries to do theatrical shows? Who else would be a good person to...
I would definitely say Gareth Pugh at the moment has kind of taken that position forward. Constantly his shows include things like voguing, dance routines. It's more than just fashion, it's actually the performance that goes with it. Equally, I would also say John Galliano has continued to uphold performance and make fashion more than just fashion, but also costume.
But also the Louis Vuitton show? No.
Louis Vuitton menswear was pretty impressive this year. So it was like all the rainbow with the yellow brick road. So Virgil did quite a massive show there. But what was quite nice about Virgil's shows, it wasn't theatrical in the sense of just set design and props. So you had the yellow brick road that they designed. But the show itself was just outside, and everybody in the audience was dressed colour-coded. So the audience was the audience was set.
So anyway, Lee McQueen did used to spend a lot of his time, money, putting his shows together and making them into huge bits of fashion theatre. But that hasn't stopped. People do continue to do that, and it is a way of presenting. I mean, even I went to see the Burberry show. That was a piece of fashion theatre. Some of these shows are now so advanced because, of course, they're live broadcast, which is what we started with Lee McQueen. So these shows are considered as the moment the designer can really articulate what they're trying to say. So they do become performances. Whether that will go on or not, I don't know. But if you just have a show which is just girls walking up and down the line, it's not necessarily newsworthy, it's not necessarily good for your fans. So a lot of designers do try and make something really quite different out of it. It's a picture I did of Kim Kardashian a while back, and somebody who's called Punkifex, Punkifex, has written, "Does Nick Knight do wedding photography too?" The straight answer to that is no, I don't do wedding photography. I did it once for one of my friends when I was at college, and it's so stressful because you've got to get it right, and there's no reshoot, and there's nothing else, and you never know whoever is. So no, I never do wedding photography. But I think that's not really what you're asking. I think you're asking whether or not, that, considering I photograph Kim Kardashian, I'll do anything, which is sort of not very nice. I really like Kim. I think she's one of the most important women in our culture today, whether you like her or loathe her. She had an enormous effect on women's body shape, and the way that she articulates fashion, whether you like it or loathe it, is one of the most powerful ways of articulating fashion these days. So like when Lady Gaga was at her height, Lady Gaga would have to walk from her hotel door to her waiting car on that sort of 10-meter long catwalk. She would launch new designers one after another. So there are different ways of articulating fashion. I don't think you can get too stuck in the same way of doing it. And then this is one of these difficult questions, because you kind of know that you know what the question is asking. So it's from a Raquel Zimmerman, a film of Raquel Zimmerman, which I did for British Vogue quite a while ago, actually. It was actually a film by Britt Lloyd, who's on my set. But it's mostly what we showed in Vogue in any case. And it's a picture of Raquel Zimmerman on a couch, and she's got some polythene she's putting across her face. The person's asked who, and I'm really sorry that I can't pronounce your name, upskirting and suffocating. We need to represent women better. Couldn't agree with you more. We do need to represent women better, and I've tried all the way through my career to show a much more diverse representation of what society will consider as acceptable beauty to put on the pages of their fashion magazines. However, sexuality doesn't necessarily go against that. And if Raquel is shown doing auto-suffocation, there's nothing wrong in that in essence, if that's just one way of portraying women. And I hope that in my work you'll see that I don't just portray women that way, but to have anything that's sexual taken out of your work, I think is wrong. I think if you only ever portray women in one way, and that's only ever sexualized, I think that's wrong. But I think that this slightly a feeling of puritanical view on life that sort of installed itself across social media is odd and weird, and it seems to be that sex is considered a sin. Yes, of course, women should not be upskirted, that's obvious. But complaining because women look sexual in the picture, it might indeed be her choice or her suggestion to look like that. So the model is not passive in this relationship. When I photograph a woman or a man, they're not passive. They don't just do what I ask them to do. Sometimes they will offer or suggest or be party to what I'm doing as well. So, but yes, I get your question. I understand it. I have a lot of empathy is the wrong word, but a lot of understanding of what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do here. So I'm not knocking the question. It's just a hard one to answer, really, because sexuality is different for everybody. It's a tricky subject. But where I probably have a different opinion from you is that I don't think that sex should be taken out of any picture of a woman. And I think that sexuality is a hugely important part of our lives and a hugely important part of who we are as people. So I really get very worried when people start saying you can't show a woman having a sexual, being sexual in an image, whether it's taken by a man or another woman. I just think that that's difficult when you start going down that line. Joe's thoughts? I
think it also comes down to agency of the subject, and in this case, I think Raquel has full agency. She's happy to portray herself in that way. She finds it empowering. She wants to do it, and I think if that's the case, it's a very different situation from someone projecting their image onto a woman that they don't want.
Yeah, I think that there's perhaps a misunderstanding of the relationship that is installed on a lot of these fashion shoots, and certainly on my fashion shoots. I only really speak for myself because I can't tell you what other photographers do, and that's their business. But I would never consider to force anybody against their will to do something they didn't feel at ease with or uncomfortable with. And as most of the relationships I have with my models it's a mutual understanding of what we're doing. Sometimes obviously you can misread people and you can get things wrong. That's natural. That happens all the time, just in life. But the desire that I have is to have my models, the people I work with, are fully agreeing to represent themselves in that way, that they don't feel that their image is being twisted by me or changed by me in a way they don't find good or the way they wouldn't agree with. So we are trying to work as a team. It isn't where I just project my opinion onto them.
I think people have got to understand as well the difference in imagery between sexuality and objectification. And I think, you know, they're very different things, and like you're saying, to visualize sexuality, visualizing an emotion, so you can try and make an image which is about love, try and make an image which is about pain, about mundanity, and also about sexuality, and it shouldn't really be viewed on any different scale than a melancholic image would be.
This one's comes from the person who had a question for a minute ago, from Punkyfex, who's written on this picture, slightly strangely, of Charlize Theron, which is an ad I did for Dior. Has written, "Oh God, I just feel like everything that is repetitive shouldn't be allowed to be called art." I also want to ask you what you're talking about. Repetition is something that the human nature kind of in a way really enjoys. Just look at the architecture around you. Look at the suburbs of London. I've got no idea where you're from, Punkyfex. But you know, look at Warhol. You know, his whole thing was about repetition. So that it's not art, which seems a strange thing. But I'm sure I'm misunderstanding your question. Anyway, so this one's coming from one of the talks I do with my son Callum, called Show Talk, which is a live thing we do after the shows. And as we do Show Talk, I can see all the questions coming up. And part of the reason why I want to do this Ask Me Anything session, or these Ask Me Anything sessions, is because I can't at the time answer the questions that come up. So this is a question that came up during a Show Talk, which was on Instagram Live. So somebody called Lourdis Buddha, so LORDISBUDDHA, said, "There's no future to luxury. It exists only in our minds. Luxury is a necessity we've created," which was kind of an interesting point. Any thoughts, John? The necessity of luxury?
I think luxury is something that is important for some people because of the aspiration involved in it, and I think luxury doesn't just come down to something being expensive, but also the quality behind something and the feel of something and how it makes you feel as a person in yourself when you're wearing it, when you own it, or when you have it in your house. I don't think it's necessarily to do with the money involved in buying luxury. I think it's more to do with feeling like you've earned it and worked up to it, and that it will last and have a special place for you.
Luxury is a hard thing to define, because I think the cliched version of luxury is Joe was saying, that sort of, it's things that have a high monetary value. But of course, for a lot of people, that's not what luxury really is. Luxury can be just the ability not to have to go to work on a Sunday, or luxury can be the moment where you're with the person you love. I mean, that's often a rarity and sometimes a huge luxury. Somebody asked, and people ask me a lot, Nick, views on Lady Gaga. Do you plan collaborating again soon? Yes, absolutely plan collaborating with Lady Gaga. I have ever since I last collaborated with Lady Gaga, which was probably Tom Ford. And we spoke then about collaborating, and every time I have anything to do, we say, we must do something. So yes, simple answer is, yeah, I'd love to work with her. Gaga's a really interesting artist and pushes me to do great things, so I would love to work with her again. But there's only a certain amount of days in the year, and she's busy and I'm busy, and we have to find something that works for both of us. So it will happen. This one is from a question that came in on Instagram on a series that we do called In Fashion. This one was Mima, our editor, interviewing Mario Sorrenti. And somebody said it's all Vogue Air, VOGUEAIR, said, "Love it. Can we please get Stephen Meisel next?" Yes, and anything you can do to help me get Stephen, to convince the incredibly shy photographer to come and be interviewed live on camera, I'd appreciate that help too. So yes, Stephen, you're welcome and invited, and I would love to talk to you on In Fashion or In Camera or any of our other interview formats. But Stephen, and I hope I'm not overstepping the mark, is very shy, and as you will know, hardly ever gives interviews, which is a shame, because he's a brilliant photographer, and from a couple of times I met him, a very nice man. So I'll keep on trying, but he hasn't agreed yet.
So this was regarding the Calvin Klein panel from our SS19 collections. Jonas Wunderkind has said, "I love these panels, however maybe it's time to spice things up a little bit with the format. Thank God there is Mima who brings some charisma and energy to the conversation, but essentially it's becoming a snooze fest. In many conversations, same stuff is being repeated season after season, energy is super low, quite boring to be frank. Maybe to do less, or just few with really good panelist selection and some proper preparations. Some intellectual discussion, clashing opinions, knowledge, sharp insights, give us some drama, make panel discussions great again."
Where to start to answer your question? We do try to make panel discussions interesting. Sadly, if you don't find them that way, but it's a constant thing here, which I always want to do more panels, and the staff always say we should do less and make each one better. But you can invite the best panelists in the world, but you can't always ensure you're going to get a good conversation, because sometimes they all agree with each other. Sometimes that they want to do is that just don't the show doesn't live up to their expectations, so they haven't got anything to say about it. You can't guarantee the conversation is going to be interesting, but we do try. We try and mix up our panels as much as we can in terms, so we don't just get the same guests on. We do our show review panels during the fashion shows. So a lot of the people who you will know from commenting on fashion, like the Alex Furies or the Tim Blankses or Susie Menkes, are at the shows. So obviously, we are talking to people who are not at the shows. We tend to get those people out of season to come and talk. We have had all of those people on our panels, but it's harder to get them during the shows. So we get people who have different interests, so maybe a buyer from a shop, or a fashion designer, or a photographer. So we get different people, and we try and mix it up. And it's a constant thing. The panels we do take a hell of a lot of putting together. And we try and make, we don't want to have boring conversations, so if you find the conversations are boring, please come and talk. I mean, it's something I'd love to do for people from the public to offer to come and do panel discussions with us. We're very open to that. You just need to write to, Joe, what would they write?
So if you write to feedback@showstudio.com with your name and all your details, we'd be very keen to hear from you, particularly you, Jonas Wunderkind.
Somebody called Joshua Parrish has written, does anybody want to teach more about fashion history? Like, I'm really into fashion, but I want to learn more and have that real knowledge and real fashion that fashion heads have. Well, Joshua, watch the panels. That's what they're there for. And watch SHOWstudio. It's full of people talking about fashion. You want to learn about fashion? Go to SHOWstudio. It's absolutely rich in people talking about fashion, interviews and discussions, and it's where we talk most about fashion, and where we try and be as perceptive and in-depth as we possibly can. We carry long-form content for a specific reason, that some things can't be said in a soundbite. Sometimes clickbait isn't good enough. Sometimes discussions have to go on for an hour. So you want to learn about fashion, there's no better place than SHOWstudio. Sorry to be blowing our own trumpet, but it's the truth. Here's another one. Here's another question, which again comes up a lot. I don't know what panel it's from, but it could be from virtually any panel. Somebody called Misbehaven, so M-I-S-S and then U-N-B-E-H-A-V-E-N, has written no diversity. Again, we invite people to come to talk on the panel from all ethnic backgrounds, of all cultural perspectives. We certainly don't just invite people who are white-skinned to come and talk on the panels. And if you look at the panels, just go back and look. There are lots of different people, there are lots of different races and origins on the panels. And of course there should be. But it's, we go to the people we think will be best at talking. And, we're not going to people just because they're a certain sort of ethnicity. We're going to people who we feel will have a point of view and have something to say. So, leading on from that, somebody who I've seen written before on YouTube has asked, so it's Cheong728, Cheong 728, has written, when will SHOWstudio keep politics out of fashion? When will they stop bringing in SJWs, which are social
justice warriors,
thank you, as guests? The old timers on the show never talked about politics, only fashion, because there were real fashion experts. Those who know crap talk politics instead of fashion. Don't want to be rude, but that's crap. If you go, so what I was saying a minute ago, if you go back and look at SHOWstudio's track record, we have a huge project which was done in about 2006 or 2005 called Political Fashion, which is where we talk specifically about the links between politics and fashion. I believe very firmly that fashion has an important political dimension, and that should be articulated. And the issues that the political issues that face us, and especially at the moment, couldn't be more pertinent to the fashion industry. What would you rather we talked about? Just commerce? I fail to grasp how you can think that how somebody presents themselves. I mean, look how differently we're all presented. We've all chosen to wear what we're wearing today because we all think it says something about us. So we all particularly, use our knowledge of fashion to present ourselves. That's a political statement. Right from the beginning, as the moment you dress yourself, you're making a political statement by what you choose to put on and going out in the street and wearing it. It says something about who you are as a person, and that's politics. Somebody's written, on the Celine panel, somebody's written, Anthony M. wrote, all of your opinions are useless. How do you make a living doing this? Well, it's weird how people think they can be so rude. Not all of our opinions are useless. I really don't. We express a kind of pretty broad platform of opinions on all different bases, some which I agree with, some which I don't. How do we make a living out of this? This isn't about making a living. I think that's the reason I'm answering your question, is because I think there's a misunderstanding that everybody has to do something for money. SHOWstudio is not about making money. It was never set up to be a money-making thing. It's not a business opportunity. It's not a way for people to make a living. It's something that's set up, and yes, it'd be great to have investment in it and all those sorts of things, but why does everything have to be to sell things? SHOWstudio was set up as a platform for people to be able to express their opinions, to show the work, to create fashion film, to do live broadcasting, all those sorts of things. It wasn't set up to make $1 million. It wasn't set up to make a lot of money. And I really don't see that artistically things had to be valid only because they make money. In my opinion, making a living out of it is not the reason I'm doing this. So this one is from, where's that? Was that from?
Do not destroy _store.
Oh, didn't we do that before as well?
But that's a question for Instagram, yeah?
Yeah.
So probably referring to one of my rose pictures. They write, at Nick_Knight, do you use IG filters on your photos? Is it wrong to use a filter? I think they're awesome, like a digital darkroom, but some people doesn't like it. Well, those people are a bit silly. Yes, of course I use Instagram filters. I'll use any tool I can do to shape the image into the shape I want it to. This probably came from one of my rose photographs. The way I photograph my roses is I pick them out of my garden, I put them in a vase and put them on my kitchen table, and I use my iPhone and I photograph them on my iPhone. And then I go through them, and it takes me a long time to do it, but then I go through them and I just choose a filter and choose lights and darks and contrast and shade and everything else, all the other Instagram filters, to get the image that I like. Instagram is a great way of manipulating pictures. It's no different to being in a dark room and choosing a grade of paper or dialing a less magenta or less cyan. It's just a different way of changing the image until you see something you like. There's nothing. It's no different to using a wide-angle lens or a telephoto lens. That changes the reality in front of you to the way you like. It's part of the craft of photography. And anything that can help shape your image into a way that you want to see it is completely valid. Whether you blow on your lens and steam it up, or whether you put Vaseline on a lens, or whether you use an Instagram filter or a glitch filter, or whether you spend your whole time in Cinema 4D, or whatever you do, they're all ways of shaping the image until you like it. So there's no argument to be had, in my opinion, about not using these things. I was showing one of the people who works here some pictures by Ansel Adams the other day. And Ansel Adams is considered a sort of a great classic of landscape photography and one of the pioneers of photography, and is sort of heralded as a sort of purist. But there's a picture, I can't remember which one it was, but almost certainly of Yosemite Valley. It's got a moon in it. Now that moon came from one negative and the rest of the picture came from another negative. So even Ansel Adams was joining his negatives together. But Ansel Adams developed a system of being able to make his pictures look so beautiful, because if you've ever seen that Ansel Adams print, they're amazing. But that's because he developed a system called a zone system. Now that's a way of being able to guess by looking at the amount of shade and light in a picture, to be able to guess the relationship between those, so when you develop the film, you develop it at certain temperatures and change the consistency of the depth. Now that's all ways of manipulating that particular negative to make it print a certain way. There's no difference to using an Instagram filter and changing that so it comes on screen in a different way. That's just your craft. There's nothing wrong with your craft. You can do whatever you want to do. Erwin Blumenfeld used to put his film in the fridge until it would freeze over. Different photographers have burnt film. I mean, people try all manner of things just to try and shape the image. There's nothing wrong with it. Do whatever you want. As long as you're happy with the image, that's all that matters, however you get there. Back to roses. This is from R. Tredra, who is Roger Tredra, because I recognise his little face on here, who wrote by one of my pictures, superb, it's time for an exhibition entirely devoted to rose series. Well, Roger, that's exactly what we're doing this week. So on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, I'm going off to Japan and we're now the 6th of November, so Wednesday the 7th of November, I'm going to Japan to open an exhibition of my rose photography in a brilliant gallery called the Mass Gallery. So you happen to be in Tokyo this week, and for next month there will be an exhibition of my rose photographs, which is the first one in the world. So I printed them out on glass plates. So really interesting way of seeing them, because you see them as objects. Quite different to seeing them on a screen. A question here from somebody called P. Bevan. Said, "Hi Nick, we met at the Burberry show on September 17th. Would I be able to bring a group of students to see you? If so, who should I contact? Thank you, Paul." Who should you contact, Joe?
Contacting, again, feedback@showstudio.com, but be very clear with your request and what it's for, and we'll get back to you.
But we're super happy to have groups of students come around here. Again, it was one of the reasons we set up SHOWstudio, is to have a space where we can talk to people and meet people from the public or everybody. It's not closed. It's called SHOWstudio. It's a gallery which is open all the time. So there's somebody in there just now. If you walked in now, I'd be here, sitting here, and we're happy to see students. It's obviously better if you kind of email us first and say you want to come down, but it's absolutely, we would really love to see students at SHOWstudio. In fact, anybody who wants to come down and look at the exhibition or come and say hi, you just have to email. We're super open and super accessible. We're not hidden away. It's not behind closed doors. We have a public gallery space which we're all in all the time. And
we do have a feedback form on the website. And on the bottom of the feedback form, you can also tick to receive our newsletter. So a lot of this information you would receive via email.
Yes. Sign on to the newsletter. Then going from this picture, which is a picture of a model I use called Ugly Worldwide, also called Giselle.
Dragon Bogies.
There you go. Has written, replying to somebody else, replying to @LennyLaws, probably a representation of the beauty industry in its height. All it does is cause us to hate ourselves and cover the scars. Which, again, I sort of find a sort of blanket criticism of anything to do with fashion or beauty really strange. There's so many different ways that beauty can be articulated, and it is articulated throughout the fashion world. It's not just that there's one version of beauty that everybody thinks is great. I mean, magazines like Dazed and Confused popped up in the 1990s. ID beforehand. It was absolutely couldn't have gone more contre-courant, as they say in French, against all of the, the mainstream ads you see from people like L'Oreal or Lancôme. So the fashion industry, has and does embrace many forms of beauty of all different sorts, and certainly, it has been doing. As I say, I started working in fashion in the 1980s, and ID magazine started in the 1980s. ID magazine's sole purpose was to show people how they are on the street. So I was one of the photographers that would actually go on the street and stand and approach strangers who I thought looked interesting and photograph them and ask them who they were, and those photographs would appear in ID magazine. That for me was my way into the fashion industry, the fashion world. There was no thought that it was like Lancôme, L'Oreal. Those are brands that propose one vision of women. It's fine, it's their vision of women, but it's not the only vision of women that's proposed in the fashion industry. If you look at the makeup Pat McGrath does, look at what goes down the runway shows for Gareth Pugh. It couldn't be, Lee McQueen, John Galliano, all these people sent down very, very, very different visions of women. And I think there's a sort of tendency to jump on a bandwagon and say, oh, the fashion industry is morally corrupt or sort of blanket coverage, a blanket criticism of it. It's true of parts of it. It's not true of all of it. It's like any other creative industry. Some of the film world is rank and void of any moral context or any moral, but not all of it is. Some of the ballet world is awful. Some of the painter, any artistic industry world has got good sides and bad sides, good people and bad people in it. If you want to believe in good people and bad people, but there's a varying range of it. And I think the reason I'm sensitive to it is because the fashion world gets a lot of criticism and gets laid a lot of society's ills, for instance, on its door, on its shoulders, or whatever the expression would be. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's true. I don't think it's fair. So.
I also think the person in this image, Giselle Zanotti, or on her Instagram, her name's Ugly Worldwide, is one of the best examples of the fact that beauty isn't defined purely by glossy magazines, but also by people who feature in more alternative publications, such as Days.id in the early days and nowadays like SHOWstudio. And I think the way that she presents herself, particularly if you look on her Instagram and the things like that, she carries out drag as a woman. She presents herself in an almost alien way. You can barely see her eyebrows sometimes. And I think, for me, she defines a form of beauty that is transgressive.
And she's incredibly beautiful. So this is a picture which I did of another young model I found on Instagram who's become a friend, a girl called Demi Scott. And this was for, again, a friend of mine called Matthew Williams, who runs a brand called isnt. Anyway, the person here is Louis_Rasto, Lui_Rasto, and they've written at Nick_Knight, what in the world, how did you execute this picture? Is this pre or post? That's what's amazing about your work, you can never tell. That's very kind of you, thank you. I'm glad you can never tell. This is pre, I guess. This is exactly how it came out of my iPhone. There was no manipulation of it, or no change of it, or nothing done with it other than it's exactly how it came out of the iPhone. The way that it looks like this is because we sprayed young Demi with 3M spray. Now, you know, 3M is that substance they put on road signs, so when your car headlights flash on a road sign, you can see it half a mile down the road. It also comes in a spray, like an aerosol spray.
For animals.
For animals. They use it to spray mainly on the antlers of reindeer, so they can see the reindeer in the dark. Not actually sure why they want to see the reindeer in the dark, but that's what they use it for. And so we thought it would be a nice idea to try spraying it on Demi, and she was up for it. And it ends up with something, and you light it only by the light from your iPhone, and it's amazing. You get these incredible, very painterly images. So that's how that was done. Again on Instagram, this is again from a series of images I did for Matthew Williams for his brand isnt. This person who goes under the name of Times345699 wrote next to my picture, in capital letters, just hire a dark-skinned girl instead next time. You're robbing dark-skinned women of opportunities that are already far and few in your industry. This is so disappointing. The reason I find this really strange as a comment is because the person in the picture is dark-skinned. She's a model called Yasuni Brito, who I don't know how she has dark skin. What else can I say? So it seems a really strange place to put that comment. You know, as it is, you know, we work with lots of dark-skinned models because they're beautiful. The weekend, yesterday I worked with Winnie Harlow, and the weekend we worked with Ducky Thought. I mean, there's some of the most beautiful women in the world, so why would you not want to work with them? So it seems really strange, and there are actually, because, and we've been fighting it, or I've been fighting it for years to try and get more dark-skinned models on the catwalk. Again, you go back to look at Political Fashion and see Naomi Campbell's film I did of her. Because as an image maker, you know, you want to photograph people who you're really attracted to and you think are beautiful. And a lot of dark-skinned models are incredibly beautiful and incredibly amazing to photograph, and, you know, move particularly well. And, yeah, it's not true of it. It sort of almost goes back to what I was saying earlier on. You know, it would only be a stupid person to think you wouldn't photograph somebody because of the colour of their skin. But really, what I was trying to say is that since Edward Enninful has been a British Vogue, he has pushed really hard for a change in how white a lot of the fashion industry looked. Not all of it, but some of it. And I think he's having a good effect there. And, you know, I've known Edward since he was a model. He used to model for me, so a long time ago. You know, I think he's doing a very good and interesting job at British Vogue. I think he's really pushing the boundaries for that particular publication. These are boundaries which were far too narrow in any case and deserve pushing, and that's what I've been saying for the last 40 years of my life. However, he is doing it now, and so it is changing, which is great, but I don't know why it's taking so long. So this one is from somebody who I'm not sure whether I should answer this or not, but it's from somebody who writes regularly on YouTube, comments regularly. He's called NADSIQ, so Nads IQ. And Nads, you're always quite, how can I say this nicely so you don't call me a rude name, but I'm sure you will. You're always quite vitriolic, and your comments are always quite difficult for us to read because you can be quite unpleasant. I don't know why you do that, and I don't know what you think we've done to deserve it, but I will absolutely take it on the chin. if you don't like what we're doing, it's fair, you should express yourself. Anyway, so Nad's IQ says, did anyone ask Nick why he was a skinhead in the 1970s? Guess we will censor that part. No, I won't censor that part. I was a skinhead because that's what I was into. I was into the music and I was into how the girls looked. And it was a way of dressing that I particularly liked. I guess your comment is based on racism, but I wasn't a racist skinhead. So some people were, some people weren't. In the 1970s, there were a lot more skinheads that are around now. And there was a time in the early 1970s before skinheads were so politicised. In the later version of skinheads in the 1970s, they became more politicised, more towards the right wing, but there were also left-wing skinheads. I was not a right-wing skinhead. I don't hold racist views, and I didn't then. However, the reason I was a skinhead is because I thought it was the coolest way to be, and I liked how the girls looked and liked how the music sounded. So that was why I was a skinhead in the 1970s. Oh, and this deals with another topic to do with race, which seems to be quite a lot of the questions I pulled out. And somebody called Laura, is it weird?
Lola _L_L.
Writes about the Vogue cover I did of Rihanna. Why her skin looks lighter. I know what you're saying, and I absolutely understand you think that I in some way have made her skin lighter so she's more acceptable. It's actually the opposite. I gave Rihanna a more bluey coloured skin tone when I first looked at the pictures, or after I was working on the images, and I made her skin quite blue. And people said to me, "Oh, you shouldn't do that because people will think you're trying to say something about, her race." And of course, I wasn't. But so we gave her a skin tone which is, as far as I remember, pretty similar to hers. But these issues, although I understand totally where they come from, and I agree totally with the premise of them, they misrepresent photography as a creative medium. If you looked at a painting, which is just another creative medium, you wouldn't start to question the colour of the people's skin. There are so many different forms of painting that are allowed to represent people. People have blue skins or green skin. Look at the pictures around us. There's one in front of me where she has blue and red skin. There's one there where she has purple skin. It's because they're paintings. And you accept that in a painting, an artist can use any colour they want to represent somebody. However, when you look at a photograph, you labour on the notion that in some way it has to be a version of reality. My problem is that photography is as far away from reality as painting. Photography does not represent reality. Photography is a very, very high subjective opinion by an artist. And how they represent somebody, the colour of the skin or whatever they choose to do with them, they are as free as an artist, as a painter, to do that. And there is very, very little difference, to be honest. I can do things on apps on my phone, or with filters I use, or lighting I use, which will fundamentally change the vision of reality in front of me. Photography is particularly poor at representing reality, and actually it's not what you want. You want somebody who can show you how they feel. You want to see images created by an artist who cares enormously for what they're doing. And the freedom to express yourselves in whatever way you want should be what you're looking for and should be encouraged. And we'll be back again next month. Thanks very much.